everybody. Welcome to Scout Center. We have a very special program here today. We are proud to welcome Michael Ramsey, the Senior Vice President, Communications and Marketing for Scouting America. Michael, good to see you.
Thanks, Charles. Great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
So we are wanting to discuss, as many of you may be aware of, a pretty big decision that just happened here a few months ago or a few weeks ago, where the National Organization of the Boy Scouts of America decided that it would be changing its brand name to Scouting America. And the organization's CEO, Roger Crone, in the announcement said that this brand change is designed, and I'm paraphrasing here, to make sure that every youth felt welcome to join Scouting. Now, of course, Michael, there are some folks who believe that Scouting was already pretty welcoming. So what evidence is there that you and your team have experienced that shows that this was really a necessary move to make?
Well, great question. And Charles, thanks again for the invitation to be here on behalf of Roger Crone and the National Executive Board. Yeah, massive decision. May 7th, mid-morning from Orlando, Roger took the stage and set up the National Annual Meeting, by the way, which was a fantastic event. But I had a couple of announcements, and one of them was we were going to rebrand the organization to Scouting America. So very exciting. By the way, the media attention on this has been spectacular. This story has appeared in over 8,207 different media outlets, like 18.4 billion media impressions. Listen, if people didn't know Scouting was around before this, they certainly know now. We've really relaunched and are reintroducing Scouting to the country, which is exciting. But to your question, why the decision, right? Let me back up a little bit because I can talk about some research that's been going on. And I'll start last year. In fact, my team was doing some research on some advertising materials around Cub Scouts specifically. And this kind of classic market research where, do you like this one? Do you like this one? Which one do you think would most likely get you to find out more about the Scouting movement? Almost 68% of people, and by the way, these are non-Scouting families, these are parents of elementary school age kids. We said, prior to seeing these materials, how many of you have even considered joining Scouting before? 60%, almost 60% said they'd never even considered joining Scouting before. It was,
That's a problem.
it's a problem, right? I mean, for those of us that have, passed out flyers and done scout talks and all the stuff that we've done, it's like, wow, it was a surprising number. Well, fast forward to, we did focus groups in February of this year, even most recently. We did 4 different markets, 8 different sessions. Again, these were parents of elementary school age and scout age youth, people that are not part of the Scouting family yet. And we went in and we did a couple of things. One is that, we showed them some logos. And Charles, you're a marketing leader in the organization. You've heard us talk about this before. The Scouting logo brand was one of the most recognizable ones in the nonprofit youth serving world, which I believe was true. But you talk to these families in these focus groups. And by the way, this was from New Jersey, this is Atlanta, this is Indianapolis, this is Denver. So it's almost coast to coast, very consistent. I think 4 people out of 7 different sessions even recognized what our corporate logo was.
Wow.
Now once they realized it was Scouting, they were like, oh, and then they knew a lot about it, but it just wasn't top of mind. So you start to look at some of these statistics, some of this market research, and realize, we need to do a better job of reintroducing ourselves to the country. So that was part of the fuel for the board to begin to considering, what do we need to do to make sure that we're open and welcoming to anybody who wants to join and be part of the Scouting program. The other component of this is girls. If you go back, we welcomed girls into exploring back in 1969. And then certainly there's the venturing program that started, which is 26 years old this year. You've got girls in that program as well. And then we invited girls to join Cub Scouting and Scouts BSA, 5 years ago, anniversaries this year.
Right.
There are 176,000 girls in Scouting programs right now across the board. And 6,000 of those young women have earned the rank of Eagle Scout, which is just phenomenal. Well, I think what we've realized is that we need to make sure that not just those generational Scouting girls who were, her dads were scout leaders and they were tag-alongs with Cub Scout packs and those kinds of stories that people that
Older
knew
brother.
scouting and knew what the promise was, but the rest of the girls felt comfortable walking in a door that held scouting adventure. And part of the thinking on this from the board is that, you know what, those girls are going to join. They're going to be excited about the program. But the rest may look at this and think, it says boy over the door. Is this really for me? Right. So part of that is the inspiration for this change to make sure that everyone felt invited to the program.
Fair enough. And there's something that was from a presentation that I had seen, and I thought this really crystallizes the idea very well. It's wanting to make sure that people just don't feel that they're welcome, that they know that they're welcome. And in particular, I can see where with girls, switching to this new brand would help do exactly that. I have to imagine that you, in the interim, and it hasn't been that long since this decision was made public, that you have received a lot of feedback, especially from girls or families of girls in support of this. Is there some of that you can share that really kind of speaks to the heart of the intent of this move really striking a chord like you'd hoped?
Absolutely. And so a lot of feedback. And some of the questions have been, wow, why didn't we do this 5 years ago when we welcomed girls initially? Right. So that's been part of the feedback. It's like, where has this been? Um, we actually just wrapped up another focus group right before the national annual meeting, and we've got this really great video clip. We didn't even know it was there until we were kind of scrolling through some of the video. It was talking about uniforms, and and by the way, I think this girl I think she was an Eagle Scout, but they're having a conversation about uniforms, and randomly she stops and she says, I've been a Scout now for 3 or 4 years. I don't understand why these patches still say boy, why it says boy on it, because I'm in. What about me? It was one of those just kind of authentic, just kind of off the cuff, wondering out loud, wow, why is this like this? But no, we've gotten terrific feedback from young women in the program who have said, finally, right? And now I feel like this is a program that I'm fully welcomed and invited into. So it's been really positive. And from parents too, who may have a girl in a troop and a boy in a troop, and who said, you know what, now I feel like that, my family's all really been welcomed and invited into the program. So, but hey, you made a point earlier too. I think scouting is very welcoming. I mean, listen, I've been a scout leader. I know you have. Listen, my troop has always been welcoming, but this is just making sure that everybody knows that it's okay. We've talked about, if I started a local girls soccer team lately, or if there's one that was the girls soccer club, that anybody could join, right? Boys or girls. How likely would somebody of another gender be to just feel like they've been invited to that? I think the answer is, maybe not. We're all trained to walk through the door of our gender from a very young age, and this is just one way to remove one of those barriers.
So is there, I'm curious, and,
Mhm.
and playing off of your thought of the uniform part,
Mm.
is there a maybe second order effect that the organization hopes comes to pass where the removal of boy from the brand of the overall organization, might that also lead to some increases in those older youth programs outside of Scouts BSA? So venturing, sea scouting, maybe to an extent exploring. Is there any hope that maybe that might be something else that comes as a result of this?
Well, listen, I think a rising tide lifts all ships, and part of the strategy on this as an organization is to, again, if 60% are not thinking about, yes, we need to reintroduce scouting to America and vice versa, but also re-invite people to join. And I think that's certainly Cub Scouts, certainly Scouts PSA. I would love to see an increase in exploring and venturing and sea scouting. I mean, they're just amazing programs. But yeah, I think this is an opportunity for all of us to talk about these great programs, because maybe Scouts BSA is not for you, right? But maybe sea scouting is your thing, or venturing, or you're looking for a career path to exploring. Listen, I think this is a tremendous opportunity for us to get back out there and continue to talk about scouting and the cool stuff that we get to do as leaders, but also that youth get to experience.
Right. So on the topic of Scouts BSA and all those
Uh,
other program names, that's staying the same. There's no other change. And I guess just in general, are there any other changes coming as a result of this?
That's a great question. And you read some of the social media posts, some people are like, okay, what's next? I can assure you that the name is the only thing that's changed. The Scout Oath is not changing. Duty to God is not changing. I mean, it's still troops for boys and troops for girls. Um, all those under that, all that stays the same. So that's the only change. I will tell you that the Scouts BSA is a trademarked term, and we're not planning to change that right now. That's it's a trademark term, and we're going to continue looking at that in the future, but we currently have no plans to change that.
And this may be sort of getting a little ahead of ourselves, but a lot of people will ask uniform, and I know I just bought a new uniform shirt
Yeah.
not all that long ago, where instead of the Boy Scouts of America, I now have the BSA there. Is there, I would have to imagine that eventually there will be a plan where we might see Scouting America or something like that, or are we still not quite,
No,
yeah.
Charles, that's a great question. So, a couple of observations related to that is that this is a rolling change. So, councils are welcome to start using the Scout America branding now. We're starting to implement it at the national office. You'll see, or national level, you'll start to see things show up on the web and videos and social media, those kinds of places. But yes, there'll be changes to some of the marks that you'll see. When new handbooks come out, for example, you'll see Scouting America, on the back of the books and places like that. Same for, as we use through, pamphlets and brochures and flyers and things, you're going to see us, change those things out as an organization. A Scout is thrifty. Well, I've told people, I said, hey, don't go down to the closet in the council and throw that stuff away. I mean, there's no reason to do that unless it's just time to update it, right? And as we either use the last one and reorder stuff, then you can update the marks and logos. But people have called and said, "Oh, do I need to go, cut my sign down at camp?" No, 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 no. Yeah, it's fine.
Or
When
tear
it
up,
comes time to update and replace them, then we can do that.
right, or don't go tearing up the floor at the council office because Boy
No,
Scouts of
no, yeah,
America, right?
don't go rent a jackhammer and take no, 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 don't do any of that kind of stuff, right? Now we do, brand consistency is important. I mean, if we want to make sure that we are consistent across the organization. So when somebody moves to Austin, for example, they want to be able to find Scouting America. So we do, at some point in the future, and actually it's 2027, we want to have most of the signage changed out on those types of things. But we know that, heck, I've got vinyl stickers in the back of a troop trailer. Do I need to change those out? Well, when it becomes time to do that, absolutely. And if you want to, there'll be artwork available for that. But there's no need to rush out there with a razor scraper now and go after it.
Right, or I don't need to toss out all of our Class B T-shirts or
Oh
anything.
no,
It's all
absolutely not.
just
Again,
right,
a scout is thrifty, right?
right, exactly. Okay, so let's talk about. I know as much as it seems, whether it be through social media or media coverage in general, there is a lot of positive reaction and momentum to this change. But of course, not everybody is in love with the change. And
Sure.
my unscientific observation is that most people who are not fans or having maybe a difficult time with this decision, they fall maybe into one of two groups. They're either upset, understandably, about the loss of tradition or legacy of that name, Boy Scouts of America, which carries a lot of weight to a lot of folks. Or maybe they believe that there's some kind of, let's say, underlying political statement.
Hmm.
Um, it's a free country and everybody can feel how they would like about things. And we're not necessarily trying to change anybody's mind. But is there, as we talk to our volunteers and prepare them as they go, and whether it's working in a round table or at a joint scouting night later, or just within their own unit, are there ways is there advice that we can give scouters who can help folks who maybe aren't as big of fans of this see some of the benefits of this change? And it may not, we will likely, there's some folks who will never change their minds completely. And again, that's fine. But are there ways that we can help those folks maybe frame this in a way that we believe is what is best for the organization?
Well, that's a great another great question. And let me just say too, hey, we're all scouts, and I grew up with Boy Scouts of America. In fact, I think on the shelf I've got stacks of old handbooks. And listen, my sister actually bought me. She found an old uniform for somebody wore to the 19 whatever it was jamboree that she found at a thrift shop or something. I collect that old stuff. I love it. But I also know that some of those old handbooks have buggy whips in them, right? I mean, as an organization, we're going to shift and change and move and become, serving today's youth and families as best we can. I think I have a couple of observations on that. And again, so I'm nostalgic about the Boy Scouts of America, but I'm also excited about Scouting America and all the people that are going to get involved in this, because they do feel like we've invited them back to experience the fun, cool adventure stuff that other kids maybe don't get to do. As an aside, as an organization, think nationally we serve on average about 2% of the population that we could be serving, the total available youth population. So there's 98% of America that could be having an amazing adventure in scouting, and want to make sure that they're welcome. That's really what this is all about, right? I would say that I would remind people, and by the way, I get it, right? But we've got to was it Will Rogers? I live in Fort Worth. Will Rogers Convention Center's here. Will Rogers famously said the only thing wrong with the Scouts was that there's just not enough of them. I think we need to invite more people, because I think this country needs the ideals of the Scout Oath and the Scout Law, maybe now more than ever, right? So that's some things I would say. And I would also remind people too that the name is the only thing that's changed. Right? It's still troops for boys. It's still troops for girls. It's still duty to God and country and the oath and the law and the things that bring us together. None of those things change. The opportunity here for all of us is to turn back to our communities and say, "Come with us." Right? Let's hit the trail. Right? Let's go camping, and let's raise our hands in the Scout Oath and Scout Law and the Pledge of Allegiance and all the things that we do, because I think we need it. I think our families need it, communities need it, and the countries need it. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Well said. All right. So considering all that, uh, it is obviously no secret that scouting needs to grow, and not just for numbers' sake. To your point, it needs to grow for what it means for boys and girls to learn and practice the values of the Scout Oath, the Scout Law, what that means to how they grow, the types of adults they become, the more successful they can be later in life. So one of the key parts of that, obviously, is your recruiting events, join Scouting Night, etc. Sometimes your spring recruiting events as well. Uh, is there advice that you would give in terms of how much in those environments that volunteers or even professional staff should emphasize the new brand name? And I guess where I'm coming from with that question
Mhm.
is it possible to get too wrapped up in the name at the expense of really people are there to learn about the benefits of joining, how fun the stuff is? And if you are too much in the mode of focusing on that change, then you might short circuit some of it. So I guess ultimately, is it should there really be that much of a difference for people who are conducting those joining events considering this change?
Yeah, really great question, right? So I guess the question is, could we over-index in talking about the name as opposed to talking about the fun, exciting adventure, life-changing experiences they're going to have in scouting? I probably so. I mean, I really nothing has changed. It was in a rose by any other name. This is scouting, and nothing has changed. So I hope when those families come to that Cub Scout meeting, right, and or that Cub Scout joint scouting night, and the leader gets up and says, "This is going to be amazing." That's not part of the conversation. The conversation is it's Pinewood Derby cars and it's family campouts and all the fun, cool stuff, the life-changing stuff that we do. The name over the door shouldn't be a barrier. It should be welcoming and inviting everyone who wants to show up. So if anything, it's an opportunity to continue to invite people to come down to the fun and the adventure. But so I wouldn't think we'd over-index on it. I think we talk about what goes on in that troop meeting every week that makes it engaging and fun and keeps them coming back.
So I guess we hope the name speaks for itself. And when people are there, you just do scouting, kind of like we have before. So,
Absolutely. And you know, the other fun thing about the name, and I think we'll have more fun with this in the future, is that, you know, it's a noun, it's also a verb. I mean, we are Scouting America, and that's going to be a blast.
so although the new brand name, it does not become officially official until
Mhm.
February of 2025. I know you certainly don't mind if units want to start using that name now. As you say, don't go tearing up the troop trailer or anything like that. But if you're in the mode of doing that, you're certainly welcome to go ahead and start incorporating that name and the logos, etc. So if units, districts, local councils for that matter, who are really chomping at the bit and want to get started with this, where can they find graphics and other promotional resources now that carry that Scouting American name?
That's a great question. In fact, it's so funny. The past 24, 48 hours, I've gotten so many emails and phone calls from councils who've said, our board just met. We love it. We're going. Where can I get the stuff? Right. So you find the stuff if you go to the BSA Brand Center, now called the Brand Center, no longer the BSA Brand Center. If you get the Scouting Wire newsletter, for example, at the top, there's a link to the Brand Center. If you click on that, you'll find a folder. And that's, by the way, if you haven't been there, you should go check it out. You can, I mean, it's videos, it's flyers, it's posters, but there's a folder in there that has the Scouting America branded materials in there. So click on that. You'll find some really cool videos that are brand new, that are great for opening your district committee meetings or your roundtable meetings or council events, really cool stuff. And by the way, there's more coming, but you'll find logos and all kinds of cool stuff in there. We're adding stuff every day. In fact, I think later today, if not Tuesday after the holiday weekend, there'll be new PowerPoint templates in there as well. So if you want to brand your next presentation, you can find that kind of stuff there too. But yeah, you can Google BSA or BSA Brand Center. We'll get you a link there pretty quickly and punch right in.
So bottom line here, Boy Scouts of America changing to Scouting America, but nothing else is changing. The heart of the program and the way that it's carried out and the benefits that it carries, all the same, with perhaps the exception of we would like to see more people benefit from it, and in particular, boys and girls. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's why we do this. It's to have more young people benefit from the values, the program that we know works well and that has been proven to work well. And we know that if more youth were made available and began to incorporate this into their daily lives, we would be a lot happier as a country overall now and into the future, I think.
Well said. Well said. I mean, imagine what this country would look like if everyone lived by the Scout Oath and Scout Law every single day. And that's young men and young women as well. You know, as an aside, we're getting more and more phone calls from companies who've reached out, and one in particular, I won't name them, but they said we're trying to hire the next 3 generations of workforce because we can't get enough welders and technicians and programmers. And they said we believe that Scouting America produces the kind of people that we want to hire, and they want to have those conversations. So Charles, I think you just nailed it. I think this is an opportunity to invite more people to join and to start conversation with people who should be members of our program.
Well, Michael, I appreciate your time. Michael Ramsey, Senior VP Marketing and Communications for Scouting America. Michael, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks again. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.